Hey, it's Trey here. This is the fifth episode of the ConunDRUM podcast. This is the second non-drummer that will have been on the podcast since I started, and someone that I did do some drumming with a few years ago. I subbed in for a number of shows. He is a Music New Brunswick Fan Choice Award winner from 2017. Be Dillon Ryan from Dillon Ryan and the Dream Romantic, formerly Dillon Ryan's Hindsight. I'll have the links to the Spotify and all the other socials as we do per the norm, so people can check it out. It was a really cool chat. We did some deep diving into some genre, some different artists, influences, his early days, what he's doing now, which is teaching at one of the local schools here in Miramichi, Dr. Loge. I hope you enjoy the chat. One of my favorites so far. So check it out. Enjoy. Thanks.
Can you hear me all right?
I can hear you. Can you hear me?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah?
Yeah, we're good.
Like the best you've ever heard me?
Well, it's pretty okay audio.
Okay, it's whatever. It's a crapshoot.
No, it's good.
How you doing, man? I haven't talked to you in a while.
Yeah, it's been a while. Just trying to keep as busy as I can, I suppose. But
yeah, I bet. Especially all this COVID stuff. Shows are kind of sporadic at best.
Yeah, it's kind of one of those things where it's just like, I end up booking about 10 shows for about 3 months in advance, and I feel like I'm lucky if I get to do 2 or 3 of them.
Yeah. Okay. So you're still like scheduling a bunch and then kind of throwing spaghetti at the wall and seeing what sticks.
Yeah, exactly. But no, I feel like, whenever we go into like a phase where I can start doing small shows again, I'll book for like a couple months and just hope for the best. But, I never put myself in a situation where I feel like I'm putting myself in danger or anyone else.
Yeah. Well, yeah. I mean, that's the utmost at this point is, try to keep everybody safe so that when things, start to get back to normal, that it'll be normal again and people will be able to have shows with a decent amount of people in the crowd and, maybe not spit on each other, but, at least hold hands.
Because I know that you did a full band show in the fall, right?
In the fall. Yes, we did. We went to the Cavo, yeah.
Yeah, because we haven't done anything full band since COVID started, besides like live stream stuff. So what was that like?
It was different for sure. I mean, they had similar to like when you go to like a grocery store or a bank, like they had like sections like taped off for people to. So like at that time we had 10 people bubbles, I think. And so people that were within their bubble could be in like a certain square on the floor. And they had like a lane for people to walk a certain way to get to the bar. And, I mean, they did, what they could, the best that they could. And everyone seemed to enjoy it. I mean, there was a decent crowd. I mean, it was a 50-person capacity. So,
in a place that probably holds what, like 200, I would say.
Yeah, it was a 25% capacity, I think was what it was at the time. But the show went great. I mean, it was us, it was the Witches, and oh God, they're gonna shoot me. We just met them that night, so I can't even remember the name of the other band, but they were like kind of hard, like new age punk, like scream punk.
Right.
Johnny Deathwish. Got it. Yeah, they were awesome. They were fucking awesome.
Yeah, Moncton is always pretty fantastic for just good punk rock, I think.
Oh yeah, they have a really good punk rock scene.
I would say Moncton's always been kind of known for like really good punk and really good metal.
Yeah, I would say that. I mean, more so than the other cities if we're talking New Brunswick, yeah, like Fredericton.
St. John's a very punk city too.
Yeah. When I was living in St. John, I wasn't playing at the time, so I didn't really get to dive into the scene there. But just from
when did you live there?
Oh goodness, 2002 until 2004 or 5, something like that, somewhere around that. It was a while ago. It was for a couple of years. It was when I first. My wife was from there, so we lived there for a couple of years, and then moved here for. She had an opportunity with work, so
Right.
I took a
But
year
you're
off.
from here
Yeah,
originally.
yeah. So where are you from?
I'm from here. Lived here most of my life, I suppose.
Yeah. So
But
like, did you like, did you? Because last episode I talked to Jack. He had moved to Moncton for a year. I'd moved to St. John for a
right.
little while. Did you venture off for any amount of time?
Yeah, I lived in Fredericton for a while. When I was born, my mother was living in Moncton, so I
Okay.
probably spent a little time there too. So,
Okay. So were you born in Miramichi and then like living in Moncton, or were you born in Moncton and
uh,
consider yourself Miramichi because you've been here for the
yeah, I
majority?
would consider myself a Miramichier. I'd have to fact check that one though. Go look at
Yeah.
my birth
Show me your
certificate.
birth certificate, Obama. Right on. So like, as far as your musical journey, like when did you first, like what's your earliest musical memory when you were like really drawn to it?
My first musical memory was actually probably about when I was about 2 or 3 and driving around with my father. And he used to play a lot of Neil Young cassettes. And it wasn't like the old man Neil and the damage done Neil Young. It was like, kind of dirty Neil Young and Crazy Horse stuff.
Yeah, yeah.
And I think because I was born in 91 and whatever the new album was at that time, I think Neil Young and Crazy Horse Ragged Glory. I remember listening to that a lot as a kid and just loving it.
Yeah.
That and Neil Young MTV Unplugged.
That was a great unplugged.
Oh, so good.
It was really good. Like there's a few unplugs that like, because there was a whole mess of them. Like everyone was doing them. I remember Kiss did one, and I don't
Yeah,
want to throw
I
shade,
love that.
but they were really good. And when they brought the original members back, it was like this
Yeah.
whole thing. And then they went on from Springboard from that to like the original members tour they did for a little
Yeah.
while. Yeah, yeah. I remember that. There was a guy at my school. He was a huge Kiss fan, like
Yeah.
constantly. And I remember he loaned me the DVD, and I was just like, holy shit. Like that's because before that, Unplugged was like Nirvana and Pearl Jam and Alice in Chains. Like those were
Yeah.
the really good ones at the time.
I really like the Oasis one
Mm.
because Liam Gallagher, like 10 minutes before they were supposed to go on, he told Noel, he's just like, yeah, I don't feel good. I'm not going to do it. And Noel's like, oh, yeah, thanks for telling me. So Liam sits in the bleachers just heckling him the whole time. But Noel's a great singer and, they're his songs, so he's going to own them.
I couldn't imagine doing that. Like, just like, because they would have gone through all like the rehearsals, because they're usually there for about a week ahead of time. And then just the day of being like, yeah, I'm not doing it. Like, what the fuck?
Yeah, we only have like a big orchestra behind us and
Right?
just this whole big budget.
Months of planning. No wonder they don't get along.
Like, you grew up during the 90s when all that great music was happening. Like obviously Oasis was a huge band in the UK and, a big band in North America. But what was their importance like here at the time? Do you recall?
See, I didn't really get into Oasis a whole lot until probably their third album.
Right.
And even then, like I couldn't name the tracks off of any of their albums. Like,
Right.
Because at the time I was getting into more like the punk rock stuff.
Right.
And I was diving deeper and deeper into that spiral. Like, it started with, the doors opening with like Nirvana and then finding out what they listen to and then finding out what they listen to and just kind of going down that rabbit hole.
That's such a crucial thing for like getting into music is finding out the influences of the bands that you start liking. Like that was just a vicious rabbit hole for me my whole life. Like it's like, oh, Noel Gallagher loves the Smiths, he loves the Stone Roses, Joy Division, and
I mean those are all amazing bands. Like I see the Smiths poster in the back of your wall there.
And I got Velvet Underground.
I
don't know what else is back there, but
so those are because knowing like your style of music and like with the post-punk stuff, you kind of gravitated more towards the UK stuff from what I get.
Definitely, but I wouldn't say like exclusively. Like, there's a ton of Canadian bands that are a huge influence. And obviously I love a lot of the New York kind of Bowery art scene sort of stuff. And like everything that's sort of derived from like the Velvet Underground and lots of the Seattle stuff I love, and just kind of bands that were coming from Vancouver, Seattle, Portland, and obviously there's endless amounts of great bands from like LA and Chicago. But yeah, I mean,
not much in the Bible Belt though, eh?
No.
You don't listen to a lot of Nashville or Texas,
No.
that kind of stuff?
Oh, I mean, I definitely have like a great appreciation for that, but yeah, it's not in my toolbox, I wouldn't say.
Yeah, I don't listen to a lot of Nashville sound. Although, from what I get, like Nashville's becoming the new LA. Like everybody's moving to Nashville or in that area. Like,
yeah, I would say like a lot of the big rock guys are living there now. I don't think it's quite as like just of a country place as what it used to be. It's kind of all encompassing.
Yeah.
Like a lot of the big studio session guys, a lot of them are living in Nashville. It's Nashville or LA.
Yeah, Nashville's sort of become the new Austin, I think.
Yeah.
Like just like a melting pot of everything happening.
Yeah.
Because like Austin was like insane back in the day, like just all the different musicians that were coming through there.
Like, what do you think of when you think of like major music cities? Like, let's put LA and New York aside. Like, what are the...
London.
Yeah. London, Ontario, right?
Yeah. Miramichi. No, like like definitely the UK, like London, like the bigger cities there.
Manchester.
Yeah. Chicago, Detroit. Yeah. Detroit is like up
Detroit's such a weird city though, because it's been on such a decline for the last 50 years. Mm-hmm. Like they used to be like 1.2 million people. Now they're barely have the population of Halifax.
Yeah, well, I mean, it's the recession and like all the car shops, like all the industrial automobile industry and stuff like that. Like all the people lost their jobs, so they went elsewhere. Right. I mean, it's no different than like here in New Brunswick. Like most of the people that work in New Brunswick are like service workers because everyone else is working out west.
Right.
You know, because that's where the big money is. So I kind of think that's sort of a part of it. But at the same time, like the type of music that came out of Detroit was very working class.
Oh yeah.
Like, you know, angst ridden and angry. And I mean like MC5 and
Stooges.
Like just those are
Ted Nugent, Alice Cooper. Ted Nugent was in New Brunswick 2 years ago.
Oh, was he really?
They found him hunting on Plaster Rock.
Really?
Yeah. There was a whole CBC article about it. They're like, what is Ted Nugent doing in New Brunswick and how did he get here?
How did he get in? Yeah.
I mean, he probably drove, but
yeah, he probably did. I don't think he's allowed on airplanes. Yeah, like Iggy and the Stooges and MC5, like Detroit back in the day. Like to me, that's where I was actually having a conversation with Jack, not part of the podcast, but just I think it was on Messenger, and we were talking about like the early days of punk, as we usually gravitate towards in our conversations. But we were talking about like the whole Ramones versus Sex Pistols and that whole debate, just, you know, who started punk, and it's like really it was those early days in Detroit, because like if you look at the dates, like MC5 was like what, in 67, 66?
Yeah, I think Kick Out the Jams came out in 69.
Yeah, you know, and then Iggy and the Stooges, and then from there the Ramones came out with their album, and that predated the Sex Pistols. So I mean, just timeline wise, it's like it starts in Detroit, goes to New York, then it blows up, hits mainstream, and then the UK punk, like with the Clash and all that, like.
I know a lot of people like to date back to stuff like the Velvet Underground and like how that was kind of like an early semblance of punk, but I kind of think like the Velvet Underground more like the first alternative band ever, if you know what I mean. It was kind of like opening the doors for more sort of abstract stuff and more kind of realism in music.
So going back into your musical history, when did you start thinking about playing music?
I would say like, it's kind of like that classic story that, there was an acoustic guitar sitting around the house, but Yeah, there was a little bit of that, but I would say in middle school, like my grade 6 music teacher, he really inspired me. Norman Lero.
Oh yeah, he inspired a lot of people
Yeah,
in
I
this
know
area.
it's a pretty common story on the
Yeah.
river, but like I remember the first day of grade 6 during our like first day of school assembly, and he came out with his electric guitar and the slick back hair and the shades, and he looked like Arnold Schwarzenegger, and
The Terminator walking out.
he just played this like crazy solo, and I was just like, I didn't even know like a guitar could make that noise.
Yeah. No, he was like an amazing guitar player. Well, he was an
Yeah.
amazing musician. He could play like everything.
Oh yeah.
I didn't go to. He taught at MVHS, right?
Dr. Loge.
Dr. Logier. Okay.
Which is where I'm teaching right now.
We'll get into that.
Yeah.
But yeah, like Norman Lero influenced a lot of people on the river. I didn't go to that school, so I didn't really get to know him personally.
Right. Which school did you go to?
I went to the Carrefour Beausoleil, the French one in Newcastle.
And did they have a music program?
They did for a little while, like middle school. Trying to remember the name of the teacher. It was more of like a reading music, like by the book.
Mm-hmm.
So it was very like on the page kind of thing.
Right.
So it felt very, I don't know, like
regimented.
Very regimented. Yeah. It was like, so I remember we had to pick instruments, and for some reason I wanted to pick up the saxophone.
Yeah.
Probably, okay, I'll be honest. I wanted the saxophone because of that one scene in The Lost Boys.
Right.
The dude, the muscles and the ponytail and
what a great movie though.
I love that. I watched that movie probably more than any other movie I've ever watched. Just from that time frame, like when I was in my teens, that movie played like every day, twice a day.
I ended up playing the saxophone, but I really wanted to play one of these.
Hey.
Yeah.
How you doing? Did you just recently pick that up?
Yeah, it was a COVID impulse buy for sure.
Wow.
Yeah, it's very hard.
Okay, we'll keep that in mind for album number 2. We just started working on stuff for that. So with Six Gun Smoke. So
yeah, I'm getting the hang of it, but it takes a lot of endurance.
Oh yeah. I mean, it's like anything.
Yeah.
So like music class, I wanted the saxophone. I didn't get it. I got the classical guitar. There was an acoustic guitar at my house because my dad played acoustic guitar, and I remember bringing it home, and I was like, the neck is so huge on this thing.
Right.
The nylon strings, I just couldn't do it. Like my hands weren't big enough or whatever. I was like, yeah, no, screw that. So then I just didn't bother with music class much anymore. I was just like, oh, fuck that, I'm out. I picked up the acoustic guitar later on, but I'm not very good. So,
do you still play at all?
It's in my closet. I don't, I should, but I'm not very good, and I can't sing. So you started with acoustic guitar then, because you mentioned the old story that the acoustic guitar in the house kind of thing.
My first guitar was, I think, like another common story, a Sears catalog electric guitar.
Oh, an electric, okay, like the Strat body kind of thing.
Yeah, because I remember in grade 6 I was really into the Doors. I was really into Led Zeppelin. I was really into Kiss. Well, Kiss came more in grade 7, but yeah, like just kind of those archetypal dinosaur rock bands I was really into.
Yeah.
I was obsessed with the Doors, like just beyond.
Really?
Yeah, that was like, I would say that's the first band that I ever got like obsessed with.
Okay. Was it because of Jim Morrison, or was it because of the other guys in the band?
No, there was just like a darkness to it that I really was attracted to. And it was more moody than Led Zeppelin, or as much as I liked Led Zeppelin and Pink Floyd, there was just something a bit more kind of brooding and.
Oh, definitely.
Yeah.
Like Morrison's voice alone, like.
Oh yeah.
Just that baritone, like that deep, his delivery, almost a little drunken, like.
I've always been really attracted to baritone singers anyway.
Yeah.
baritone singers that could, still reach into like a tenor territory, but Jim Morrison, Morrissey, David Bowie.
Yeah. Were you always, when you started playing guitar, were you just like learning what they did, or did you always sort of mess around with like finding your own chord progressions and like develop into a songwriter back then?
Well, the songwriting came much later, but I think that I was never really that interested in learning something note for note. Kind of just like my mistakes kind of just became part of my style.
Yeah.
Like I can, I've become pretty competent on guitar, but I'm totally not the guy to hire for a cover band to play everything note for note. I'm just not that guy, you know what I
Yeah.
mean?
No.
And
No, I can't do that.
I think that just comes from, starting out on guitar, just being a little bit more adventurous, being like, oh, this kind of sounds like the thing, than trying to make it into something else. But
yeah. So when you're writing songs, do you start with melody and music first, or is it like a lyric that comes to your mind and then you kind of find the melody in that? Um,
I found like if you had asked me that about 5 years ago, I would have said that, everything came from a riff, but I kind of learned more in recent years to just kind of write things at the lowest common denominator first, like on an acoustic guitar. So I would say that I kind of lean more towards writing a strong melody first than trying to write a good like riff or a motif around that. But
is that something that sort of developed through working with John? Because you were working with John Maloney for a little while.
yeah, me and John, like that was a big thing that he kind of stressed to me, because like I had brought in a bunch of demos and he's like, I like all of this, but it sounds like a guitar player trying to just shove some vocals on like a track rather than just like a complete piece of music. And yeah, that really sort of struck a chord with me, and wanting to just make sure a song is really great at its lowest common denominator before you start adding like the bells and whistles.
Yeah.
So I think that's why in like recent years I'm a lot more comfortable going out and playing solo acoustic and just being able to let my songs sort of speak like that. But obviously I prefer playing in the full band situation. But
Yeah, I mean, I think any musician would probably say that. I think just because it's one thing to singer songwriter, acoustic guitar, that kind of thing. But like when you're in a band, it's sort of the energy is there. You feed off of each other. There was a time when we played in front of crowds that that energy was there too.
I think it's just comes from the idea of just loving bands, just the group mentality, just, 4 or 5 or 3 or whatever, just really kind of unique musicians all trying to get their thing in there. And yeah, I just love band culture, I guess.
You and I met. I think it was at
2013.
Yeah, somewhere around that. I think it was at that rock and roll art show that was at the high school.
Miramichi Valley, yeah.
Yeah. I can't remember the name of the band you were with there. Some Dark Roads or something like that.
Yeah, I was in a band called Dark Roads and Bright Lights.
That's it. Yeah, yeah. You were playing guitar with them?
Yeah, I was playing guitar. I hadn't really learned how to sing at that point. That was sort of like the last band that I was in before I kind of wanted to branch off and start doing my own thing.
Yeah. So what made you make that decision? Like, did the band just sort of dissolve and then you had nothing to do, or were you like consciously like, okay, I want to leave this and kind of do my thing?
Well, it sort of dissolved. Yeah, I mean, if it didn't happen then, I think it would have happened eventually, no matter what, because I felt like in every band before what I'm doing now, it was like there was a real kind of identity struggle in every band. Like that band you just mentioned, it was kind of this weird thing that it was like, oh, Deep Purple meets Stone Temple Pilots meets, it had no real kind of identity.
Yeah, because I think you guys did a Queens of the Stone Age cover.
Maybe.
I'm trying to remember. Because like I know you had a keyboard, or maybe I was looking at you guys on stage and I was like, wow, they got the keyboard player, they got like the 2 guitar players, like just it kind of looked like Queens of the Stone Agey, and
Yeah.
like I know Joe is on drums, and he's like a heavy drummer. So
Yeah, James Butler.
was it Joe or James?
James.
Okay.
Yeah.
I don't know. I said
Yeah,
Joe.
yeah, James is a good drummer.
Yeah, I remember like watching you guys. And I was like, because you guys were just kids then. Like, how old would you have been then in that band?
Oh, 21, 22
Yeah.
maybe.
Well,
Yeah.
I mean, I guess compared to me, yeah, you're just kids.
Yeah. I can't believe I'm turning 30 next month.
You don't look a day over 25.
No. Yeah. I can officially say I look good for my age.
It's the hair. It's
Yeah.
gotta be the hair.
If I got rid of that, I got nothing.
Got nothing.
Just a vest.
A purple vest.
Yeah.
Oh, purple shirt, black vest. There
Yeah.
That's the
I do
Dillon
have a
Ryan
purple
uniform.
vest though.
Yeah. Oh, do you? Switch
Yeah.
it up? Black shirt,
Yeah.
purple vest? Yeah. That's one thing, like, I know a lot of bands, like, and I think we were guilty of that in the early days too, of wanting to have like a certain aesthetic.
Yeah.
Not a lot of artists, like they try and it
Yeah.
looks put on.
Right.
But I find your aesthetic always kind of seemed natural. And like
I think
overall with the group, like it worked well as a band.
right. I think it just comes down to less of a conscious decision, and rather than just kind of, it's more like just four personalities that just have kind of like a camaraderie together, and that kind of gives the impression of this unity and kind of like, and I think that's where some of the aesthetic value comes from. Like,
Yeah.
I would say my personality is like transcends into everything in my life, sort of.
Yeah, that makes sense.
You know what I mean? Yeah.
Because like, so after you left that band and then you started doing your own thing, did it start off as Dillon Ryan's Hindsight?
Yeah, it was meant to just sort of be like a studio project almost, and like the Hindsight thing came just like there were songs about my life experiences, and
Okay.
but then people just said, well, why don't you make a band for this? And
Okay.
that's kind of where that happened.
So the Hindsight was sort of a personal retrospective type of a thing for the project, and then it just sort of kind of became the title or the name of the band kind of thing.
Yeah, and I mean, as a band name, I really don't like that, but it just sort of fell into place like that because I wanted to write an album like Dillon Ryan's Something.
Right.
It came from because when Noel Gallagher left Oasis, he had a band called Noel Gallagher's High Flying Birds.
Yep.
So that's where I kind of got the idea for that. Okay. Or like Peter Green's Fleetwood Mac, something like that.
Okay. And then to not be pigeonholed with that name, that's when you kind of did the brand change into the Dream Romantic.
Yeah.
Okay.
And that I just wanted like kind of words that sort of reflected like what the music sort of infers, and like the DR and the DR, there was a symmetry there in the name. And I think it just looks great on paper too. Like it looks good. I mean, there's a lot of things that you want to consider when making a band name. It's not an easy decision.
Yeah, because this one it's like Dillon Ryan and the Dream Romantic. It's not Dillon Ryan's,
Yeah, that
kind of thing. Because I was curious, because when you did the name change, and I remember you telling me the story about the Hindsight, that it wasn't really supposed to be, the name of the band kind of thing.
Right.
At first I was like, okay, so is it going to be Dillon Ryan's Hindsight and then Dillon Ryan, the Dream Romantic, and then the next one it'll be Dillon Ryan something else? Like, is that something that you might consider doing, or is this like kind of it?
I don't think so. I think I've finally gotten to a point where I have a name that I really like, and I don't want to cause too much confusion over time.
Right. Yeah.
I started this name in late 2017, and to this day, like I have no regrets about it. Like I still feel really strongly about it.
Yeah, it wasn't like a difficult transition. Like it made sense, and when it came out, it is what it is. Like, yeah, I really enjoyed it when it came out, and I find when even going from album to album, you can see the clear progression from, the Hindsight album,
right,
and then into the Dream Romantic album. Like,
I think that we've kind of gotten a little bit more to the point of I don't want to say like my earlier works were a bit more like contrived, but I just feel like I'm not really too worried about having an agenda with anything. Like if I made another album and it went in another direction, that's fine with me.
Yeah. Well,
Like I don't have to always be under this moniker of like, oh, he's the guy doing the goth alternative thing.
right.
Because I think there's just characteristics in like the way I play guitar and just the way I write songs that it's going to come across like no matter what I'm doing.
Yeah. As an artist, you want to grow, you want to change. You don't want to repeat yourself from record to record. Like,
Right.
I mean, there's certain bands, that kind of do that, and
Yeah.
like I don't want to.
It doesn't work for too many bands, I don't.
Yeah, like AC/DC get away with it because
Yeah.
the riffs are catchy.
It's just classic.
It's classic. It's
Yeah.
their sound. So if they were at this point, especially having done it for so long, at this point, if they were to do something that was like totally off the wall, no one
If they
would
got,
listen to it.
if they got like Mark Ronson to produce their album, like it,
Yeah.
like that would
Like-
just be ridiculous.
Which
Which will be like,
apparently-
why would you do this 50 years into your career?
Exactly, because I mean, at this point, I think everybody is sort of getting Mark Ronson to produce their albums. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
but to the point, like each album, you want it to grow, and that's why
Right.
I'm a really big fan of Queens of the Stone Age, because if you listen to their first album and you
Yeah.
listen to their most recent album, you wouldn't know it's the same band.
Right. I think
But
they're
going from
really,
record to record, you see that progression, and it makes sense when you get to the latest album. You know what I mean?
yeah, they're like a band of like true artistry. Like you take a album like Clockwork, like the amount of influences on that, like it's crazy, but it sounds cohesive. Like, there's some really heavy stuff on there, but then it goes into these weird kind of abstract Bowie moments. And
And then you had Elton John guest on there. He had a couple of different people that came in. Apparently the story is that Elton John approached him and wanted to work with him. And he was like, what? Okay, cool, come in. And then they worked on that song. Like,
yeah.
And they've done a lot of different collabs. Plus the Desert Sessions. Like, there's just so many people that have been involved in that side project, if you will.
Right.
Because my favorite Queen's album is like the self-titled. Like,
right.
It's really hard to have like a perfect album. There isn't one track on there that I don't go to.
Is that the first one?
The self-titled, yeah.
Yeah.
With Avon and Regular John and Mexicola. Yeah. Like, to me, that album is just their benchmark. But at the same time, if I listen to like Clockwork, I still feel that way about that album. Like, it just there's such a different vibe to it. It's so strong. Like, if we do a track by track breakdown of those two albums, I don't know which one. Like, if I'm talking technically, musically, production and all that, I don't know which one would come out on top. Probably like Clockwork, but the self-titled would still be my favorite album. Like,
well, I think you like different parts of people's careers for different reasons. Like, I think most bands, you would say, like, the first album is a little usually more meat and potatoes, kind of just to the point and
statement, right?
Like I don't think most bands are bringing in a brass section on their first album.
No,
there is, but
there are,
what I'm saying is just like I think first albums are usually supposed to be almost like a greatest hits of your demo years.
Yeah, well, that's the other thing. Like, usually, first albums are typically very for like the really good bands. There's typically really good records because you've had all that time prior to recording the album to work on those songs.
Right.
Whereas then, so you, like, let's say you've been a band for like 15 years or 10 years or whatever, and then you get all those songs together, you've woodshedded them, you've played them live, they've become what they've become, and then you go in the studio and then you record them, and then all those songs have been done, and now you've got to follow it up with an album with all new material. Like, you don't have that back all those years prior to make another album of that caliber. So I find the second album is probably the hardest for an artist to do, to make it better than the first. I like your second album better than your first album.
Oh, thank
So
you.
that's something that you were able to accomplish, and I don't know if that's attributed to just all the lessons learned during those early years, um, or is it the different approach to how you now write songs from when you were learning how to write songs?
I'm not sure, but I was going to do this thing one time where I was going to compile like a list of the greatest like sophomore albums ever
Right?
made
Yeah, that's
because
really hard to do.
I think that bands either get it right or they get it horribly wrong.
Right?
You know, like Oasis got it right with Morning Glory, Weezer with Pinkerton. There, you know, there's a lot of good examples of it.
Nirvana with
But
Nevermind.
oh yeah, I would say they got it
I
right.
think they got it right. But there was a big shift in the type of songs because you look at
Yeah,
Bleach and you look at songs like Mr. Mustache and Negative Creep, and then you go to the Nevermind and you've got like songs like Come As You Are and Lithium, like
yeah.
really poppy, catchy,
It was a
stripped
change that
down.
had to happen though.
Yeah.
Like
But
I
you
know,
had a hint of that with About a Girl, right? Like,
right?
well, that pop sensibility that Kurt
That
brought.
Beatles influence for
Yeah.
sure. But you know, I know some people that say like, "I hate Nevermind." I'm just like, we wouldn't be sitting here talking about Nirvana if that record didn't come out.
True. We wouldn't be talking about a lot of bands if that record hadn't come out,
Oh, absolutely, yeah,
right? Um, like I know like some people they kind of shit on Nirvana because of how it ended and the fact that In Utero was such a like fuck you to everybody, like with the
yeah.
songs. To me, my favorite album is probably In Utero for that reason because it was
Mm.
just such a different album when it came out.
In Utero's my favorite too.
Right? Like, I
Yeah,
mean, all apologies, but then like
yeah.
Tourette's is such a kick ass fucking just noise, you know.
And how
Full
could you
front.
forget?
Oh yeah, your audio just cut out when you did that.
That's me just playing
Scentless
Scentless
Apprentice.
Apprentice. Yeah,
But see there, and like Dave Grohl wrote that song,
yeah,
and then they woodshedded it, but like knowing now what we know about the Foo Fighters and that first Foo Fighters album,
yeah,
that's a total Foo Fighters riff. That whole
yeah. Oh,
song is a
totally.
total
Yeah.
Foo Fighters song. Like
What was
that's
that? What was that other song that Dave wrote that was like a B side? Marigold.
Marigold. Yeah,
Yeah, that's a
yeah. The
good
Foos play
tune.
that live in their like acoustic set.
Yeah,
Yeah, apparently the story with that is they were waiting on Kurt in the studio and they were like in London or something, and he was off on a heroin high or whatever, and he didn't show up.
right.
So rather than waste the studio time, um, Dave was like, "Well, I got this riff. I might as well, work on it." And then Chris was there, and they kind of laid the track down. And I don't think Kurt played on that song at all. Like, there's nothing Kurt on that particular song,
Right.
which would be the only Nirvana song that is like that.
Yeah, that's bizarre.
It's really weird, but like Nirvana, like I said, people shit on Nirvana because of Kurt and the way it ended and all that. I don't know if
People like to just shit on stuff
yeah,
that's influential or popular.
right. It's
But
like
some of this stuff is just popular just because, you know, it was just amazing.
yeah, I think people don't give them well, people do give them the credit for breaking the barrier, but it's mainly the people that it directly impacted, like bands like NoFX and like Offspring and Green Day. Like they know that they wouldn't have the careers that they have now if not for Nirvana breaking that door open and shifting the mentality of rock music at that time. Um, and then they shit on Kurt because of he wasn't a great guitar player and he wasn't this or that, he wasn't a great
Who
singer. And it's like,
cares?
who cares? They were
What would you ever listen to a song and say, "Oh, this is such a great song, but you know what? That guitar riff, that's pretty easy to play." Like nobody does that.
I mean, you look at the Beatles,
Yeah.
everybody can play the Beatles.
Yeah.
I could probably play a lot of the lead guitar, like lead guitar that George Harrison did
Mm.
back in the day in the Beatles, because like music wasn't about shredding and being the best technical player. It was about being a band, creating melody, creating like songs that people would feel and that would mean something. Who cares if I can play like 250 BPMs, like double bass and all that crap. Like,
Yeah.
it's cool to be able to do it, and there are definitely genres and styles of music that need that. Sure,
I'm a songs person
but
though.
yeah, when you break it down, like a songwriter, melody is key, and
Yeah.
Kurt wrote melodies, whether he knew he was doing or not. Like, he probably didn't know the technicalities of, he was playing like a fifth over a nine or whatever
Yeah.
mumbo jumbo you guitar players talk about, but he knew it
I
sounded
don't
good.
know.
He knew it sounded good,
Yeah.
and he knew to do it just by nature, which wouldn't that make it even that much more impressive?
I would think so.
You know?
I think punk like was easily one of the most important things that has ever happened to music. Like,
Yeah.
I think demystifying music a little bit is pretty important. Just like it's not a boys club. Anyone should be able to do it.
Yeah, exactly.
Anyone should be able to express themselves, and like,
yeah, like to me, punk rock is my favorite genre of music. It helped me a lot through like my teenage years, and like those are the formative years. And they say the music that you listen to at that time is the music that you carry with you forever.
yeah.
But to me, it more so than just the music. It was
Right.
the attitude. It was the perception of the world around you. Being socially aware. Like,
Yeah.
I don't want to make this an episode about Kurt Cobain, because I mean, he ended his life tragically, and that a lot of people, that's a very selfish thing. But at that time, people didn't understand the mental health issues that he was going through, and all the social things that he was trying to change or bring awareness to. Like,
Right.
he was a feminist to the core. Like, he fought.
Yeah, like he detested this kind of macho sort of raucous behavior that would happen at these kind of like like cock rock bands, like concerts.
He got into it with Axl Rose and Guns N' Roses because
Yeah.
of that. Like, he couldn't stand that whole treating women like they're just objects of their desire kind of thing.
Yeah.
And he really spoke out about that, and I think that's another testament to why people should give Nirvana credit for what they did.
Absolutely.
So I mean, Kurt was probably my idol back in the day. Did you have any particular idols that you had growing up that sort of you wanted to sort of aspire to be? Or
I wouldn't say it was just one in particular. It was like I was saying, I was just really into band culture, so it was like always trying to obtain something like whether it's the Smiths or the Doors or something like that. Like, David Bowie was obviously a pretty key figure in my life, more from the standpoint of just being an artist and like progressing and changing, and even more than his music itself, even though I'm a great fan of it. But yeah, it was just bands in general that I was really into, and guitar players.
Yeah,
I was really into guitar players. Like,
when you say guitar players, do you mean like Joe Satriani and like
no,
cats?
No, like the guitar players in these bands, like songwriter guitar players. Like,
okay.
Like, obviously Johnny Marr is probably my favorite guitar player.
You met him, didn't you?
I did, yeah, and he was a lovely, lovely man.
Mm-hmm. You actually had something published.
Yeah.
Yeah. What was that?
I used to write for a Johnny Marr fanzine,
mm-hmm.
and I also wrote for a Johnny Marr fan book that was published.
Yeah. So they took an excerpt from your fanzine and put it in the book?
Yeah.
Awesome.
Yeah, Johnny Marr has just been like a very like kind of formative figure in my life, just from like his attitude, like just having a good positive attitude about working hard and just going for what you believe in and trying to being an evolving musician.
Yeah.
But I'm not real elitist when it comes to guitar players. Like, I love all different types. Like as much as I love Johnny Marr, like I love Ace Frehley, I love Eddie Van Halen, I love that kind of stuff too.
Yeah.
Love Neil Young, I love his guitar playing.
Yeah, it's like he definitely brought that kind of real rawness to it, like kind of
Yeah.
sloppy, kind of, just honest. Like probably my favorite performance of his is the acoustic one. I think it was at Albert Hall, was it? Way
Yeah.
back in like the 70s. Like that,
The
to
one where
me,
he's
that
wearing the
show.
corduroy jacket.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like that whole show is just like phenomenal. But it was like just pure. Like he even messes up a couple times in it, and it's just
There's
part of
nothing I
what it
love
is.
more. There's nothing I love more than that.
Yeah.
Just seeing a band you love and they just do a complete clam on stage.
Well, yeah, we've done that a few times.
But it's real.
But it's real. Yeah, well, that's probably bringing it back to like the punk rock thing is,
yeah.
out of all the musical genres, the one that's generally accepted and expected, to keep it that pure is in punk rock. Like,
Yeah.
especially like at a show, like who gives a fuck? Like,
It's interesting. About once a week, because I teach at Dr. Loge, and I was asking the grade 7 kids, like once a week we'll try and talk about like a different genre of music, and I just want to see what they know about it.
yeah,
And the last one we did was I was asking them what they knew about punk
okay.
and punk culture, and it was just interesting to see like that generation's like perspective of what that is. And
Yeah.
it was really interesting to see that most of them kind of identified it as like a spirit or an ethos rather than just like a sound. And I was blown away by that,
Yeah,
really.
that's like I don't want to say that's a right or wrong answer, but that's like probably
Yeah.
the best answer.
Yeah.
Definitely
I
is.
I just
They
thought it
have,
was a pretty like encompassing answer. Just
yeah. Do they have
yeah.
any specific like bands that they classified as being punk?
Just one sec. I'm gonna grab the sheet real quick.
Okay, sure.
Okay, so I have all the sheets here, and there was one of the question was like, what do you think of when you hear the word punk rock? Someone's like, an angry version of rock. Name a famous person you think of when you hear the word punk. Joey Ramone.
Wow, okay. And this is in grade 7?
Yeah.
Okay.
What do you think of when you hear the word punk? Sticking it to the man.
This is great.
Yeah, it's awesome.
Like, is this stuff that you like? Did you just give that to them before getting into like that module, or did you talk to them about the genre first and kind of give them an
uh,
idea?
about once a week, we're going to try and do this thing where we just take like 20 minutes of a class and we'll talk about like the culture behind like a certain like time in music, just talking about like the spirit of it, the fashion, the music itself, just like the cities that were related to it, like the formation of it, and just trying to give like a little bit of music history, really.
I think that is so important. I think more schools should be adopting that methodology to teaching
Yeah.
music, because music is always a snapshot of time, right? It's a
Right.
reflection of the people and of the different communities, like, the urban community with the rap, and like Detroit with the working class, and like LA with the glam and all the, the fakeness of it, like, sort of that surface level. But then when you get down into the nitty gritty, you find, the punks and the, you know and then New York, like all the different areas. And then of course in Canada, like the Atlantic provinces,
Yeah.
and like
You got
Ontario, and
you got the coasts, which are like great hubs
vastly
for me.
different,
Halifax and Vancouver.
right? So I think that methodology in teaching music is probably the best that I've heard. Like, because going back to when I was in music class, like I said, it was very regimented and on the page, and like you had your clef sheet with, your time, like your quarter notes, and like you had to be there with your wood blocks and hit, like that's all well and good, but you're not really
Yeah.
learning about music.
Yeah, I think I just wanted to sort of take like a different angle with this and just kind of like, focus on a bunch of different things. And instead of trying to make it like, you know, math class with a glockenspiel.
Right?
Like nobody wants that.
Nobody wants that. So how did you get invited into teaching? Because you don't have a teaching background.
No, I have a couple years of post-secondary, but I signed up for the artist in residency program through Arts New Brunswick.
Mm-hmm.
And I just kind of got on their line of people for District 16. And I got hired going on 2 years ago at Dr. Loge, and they've been keeping getting funding to have me work there on a full-time basis.
Mm-hmm.
So, and I got to say, it's like one of the most rewarding jobs I've ever had.
I bet.
And it keeps me working in a music kind of environment.
So do you teach like actual like guitar and that type of stuff, or is it all just theory based?
No. I last year we actually wrote and recorded a song and did a music video for that, and we premiered it on CBC. And but obviously this year with a bit more kind of restrictions in place, we're kind of doing like these small little projects that'll be like a week at a time, and just trying to always just find out like what the kids' interests are, because I know like getting interested in music and stuff, the last thing you want is something kind of like jammed down your throat. You want like interest to come organically to you. So
yeah,
I'm always trying to find like what interests them before I make an idea of what we're going to do.
Yeah. So like that video that you shot, you worked with Mobian Productions and James McClafferty.
Yeah.
Which you've done a few collabs with.
Yeah.
Like there's
quite
like,
a few.
Quite a few. I like.
Yeah.
So you almost are in more videos than his Jar of Pickles, Mr. Pickles.
I'm always so scared that he's going to drop that jar of pickles.
Yeah. Well, I mean, how old is it now? It's probably like 30 some years.
21 years. I think they were born in 99.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
So that you working with James, is that because you've done a few different videos? You did the Bauhaus cover. You did
Send Me an Angel.
And you did the Ramones cover.
Yeah, that was a fun one.
So do you guys have anything else in the works?
We actually have.
You're in like his COVID bubble because you do a lot of different things with him. So
yeah,
working on something else during COVID.
Yeah, we're working on a few different things. I've actually been working on a record with my father on a bunch of songs that he's wrote, and we're kind of writing them together, and I'm recording those and kind of doing my take on them, and I'm going to be putting out an album of his songs, as well as I'm also working on an acoustic EP.
Okay. I suppose it's hard to get together with the full band and have most of your band or some of your band are in Moncton.
They're all in Moncton.
They're all in Moncton.
Yeah.
So yeah, it'd be kind of hard for you to like write songs unless you're gonna do it over like Zoom or whatever, and like show them the riff, and then they all kind of take it away and work on their parts separately. I mean, I guess it's doable, but to do an album that way would be very challenging.
I mean, with being in the yellow phase right now in New Brunswick, we actually planned a live stream show at the SSI Soundstage next month, April 23rd. So that's something to look forward to. So
would you, I guess that'll leave time for you guys to do like rehearsals and stuff, but not much time to work on new things as a band.
Right. Yeah. We're going to have some new music coming out soon. Like we're just in the mixing process of some new songs.
Yeah. Okay. That's awesome. So realistically, when would album 3 come out, do you think?
I don't know. It's so hard for people to digest records now. I know this is an age-old question, but I'm going to put a single out in about a month and probably another one in the summer sometime, then maybe plan for a release later in the year.
Yeah, that's something like, I know we just started working on songs for our second album. And we're kind of like old school in that way, where it's like an album is a concept in itself. A collection of songs is a snapshot of the band at that time, kind of thing.
No, I totally agree with you. I just wish the rest of the world would see it that way too. Yeah.
So I think with album 2, we're probably going to do that. Like we released the first one that we worked on with James. Once we got it done, we were going to wait to put it out, but then we thought, you know what, it's COVID. Most people listen to stuff digitally anyway.
Yeah.
So we released it digitally, and we're going to be getting some physical copies probably within the next couple months. While we work on album 2, and then we'll.
Right.
But we did have a discussion as a band of doing that, releasing a song digitally, one at a time until there's a collection of songs that make up an album, and then
right.
At that point you've got all the songs that are going to be on the album done, and then release the physical copy of that collection of songs, and it becomes that album kind of thing. I think that's something that a lot of people are kind of gravitating towards, just because of the way it's consumed.
Yeah, it's a common model. I think the only problem that certainly I run into with that, and I know some other people have said that they have a problem with it, is the fact that I feel like sometimes, like when you're doing it like that, you almost feel like, am I just writing singles here?
Right.
Like, am I writing like 3.5-minute songs that are just kind of appease people for a couple months at a time? And you don't want to fall into that rabbit hole either, I don't think.
Which is why we decided against it.
Yeah.
We don't, we'd rather, that's one of the things that music now, everything is just like in your face. It's always there. Like, I mean, I think we're all guilty of that, and we kind of have to be because of the way social media works. People like seeing the behind the scenes things, and what are you doing today, or what's the next thing that you're working on right now, and trying to keep them engaged so that you keep your audience with you. But I kind of miss those days of that mystique of, you wouldn't hear from a band for like 8 or 9 months, and then all of a sudden they come out with an album, and then they disappear for another year, and then they come out with another album. Like, you didn't know what was going on all the time. Like, to me,
right.
I really do miss that era of mystique.
Like, obviously it's important to have this kind of pragmatic way and, be promoting yourself. But I also think that, like, when you got something new coming out, it's almost good to go dark for like a few weeks,
right,
before, because, as much as it's good to be promoting yourself, there's nothing worse and more annoying than someone oversaturating.
Absolutely. Like, just the constant, like, hey, here I am, buy my record. Hey, check out this, or I'm doing that. Like, there definitely is that oversaturation. And I think, some artists, they get it and they do it really well. And some, they really miss the mark, and you then become bored of it because it's so much. And then you just shove them off to the side, and then you don't look at them for a while. And then you might come back to them later. See that collection of stuff that they worked on and be like, oh, it was good or whatnot. Or maybe it was crap, because they put so much stock into doing the social stuff that they then don't focus on the actual craft and the art of what they're working on, and it suffers because of it.
Right. No, I think if musicians took the amount of time that they're on social media into just crafting great music, like, I mean, we'd have a lot of great music. But
well, I mean, the cream rises to the top. Like, that's another thing, is like, there's so many bands out there, and there's so much content that it's, sometimes it's hard to like weed through the grass. But the good stuff still is good stuff. It's harder to find. That's all.
Right. I would agree with that.
Yeah. Cool. I had a bunch of notes written down, like, for things that I wanted to talk about, and
we just kind
of went off page. But I mean, generally, I think we pretty much covered a lot of what I
think it's better to do it that way.
Ever, like, no, this is a great. I'll throw the coffee cup. No, I won't do that. That's abuse.
That was my students' homework. I really should not have thrown.
That's fine. They all have their names on it. It's good. Yeah. I think this is probably a good spot to shut it down. I don't want to overdo it, because I'd like to have you back on another episode where we can kind of keep the discussion going. And
absolutely, maybe when I have some new music out or something.
Yeah, that could work.
Yeah.
I really appreciate you doing this.
I've been wanting to be on here for a while, so
I think you're the first person to say that. I mean, I guess there's a few people that do watch it, and I appreciate, everyone that does watch it and support the channel and watch the videos. And I'm not
Right.
one to do the whole, like, subscribe, do the, like, people are going to watch it or they're not, and they're going to like it or they're not. And I hope people enjoy it, and I hope people get stuff out of it, and that each guest is something that, people learn about each guest, and then kind of dive deeper into, like, the local music community.
Awesome, man.
But yeah, so we'll do this again. I'm going to link all your socials in the description and all that stuff, so people can check out all your work. You're doing, I don't want to be religious, but it is a saying, you're doing the Lord's work
Yeah.
with the youth. And yeah, man, good work. Congratulations.
Thank you very much.
Right on. That was my conversation with Dillon Ryan. Really great chat. He's doing some really good work with the school. He's a really great guest, very candid, open and honest person. Check out his socials. Check out the previous episodes if you like this one. The whole click, like, subscribe. Like I said in the last video and during the conversation, like, subscribe, do whatever you want. It's YouTube, you know how to use it. If you do want to subscribe, great. Leave a comment. I do appreciate the comments and private messages. Really encouraging for those of you that are into what I'm doing. Thank you so much. I hope to keep doing them. So take care of each other. Take care of yourselves. You matter. Everybody matters. And just be patient and kind. I think during all of this pandemic stuff, the most important thing we can all do is just be kind to one another and help each other out when we see somebody that needs help. Reaching out to help somebody can be life-changing and more important than you think. So anyway, thanks so much. Until the next one.